Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
With UKIP, as so much of our enjoyable time together has done over the years. And listen, it would be quite easy for me now to do what I think the kids call trolling. I could troll UKIP supporters, I could troll Faragistas, and it would be, I think, beneath us both. There's no need to do that. We're never going to agree with each other about whether or not the man himself is a deceitful, bigoted racist. We're never going to agree on that. You're never going to see that he is. I'm never going to be able to make you realise that he is. But that's not the conversation that we're having today. The conversation we're having today, and it will be one that is not by any means confined to UKIP loyalists, but which I think will probably be of more interest to them than everybody else, is simply this. Douglas Carswell, I think it's fairly clear to see what Douglas Carswell's problem is. UKIP was the only place on the planet where he could feel like an intellectual. And, you know, we all like to feel clever. Some of us are lucky enough to feel clever in mixed company. Some of us perhaps feel clever when we're out with the dogs or feeding the gerbils. Douglas Carswell clearly didn't feel that the Conservative Party had properly recognised his astonishing levels of intelligence, so he joined UKIP, where for a brief while he looked like a genius. And then I think reality began to set in, and he realised that he hadn't really joined a political party at all. He'd joined what is effectively a personality cult. That doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing. Christianity was a personality cult. Sadly, so was Nazism. So there are obviously two extremes to the notion. He realised he joined a personality cult, and all his talk of being a Gladstonian liberal, I think that's on his Twitter biography, began to feel to him increasingly ridiculous. Oh yes, I'm a proud libertarian. I'm pursuing a Victorian principle of plurality and liberalism. You're not really. You're presiding over a constituency that is so anomalous as to almost be negligible, and you're doing so as the only parliamentary representative of a party that effectively boils down to one man. So I think that I'm going to be in agreement with the Faragistas today, possibly for the first time ever, because there's no way Carswell's going to land a punch on your man. Absolutely no way at all. For the very simple reason that without Farage, there's no UKIP. There simply isn't. I don't know. I'll charge myself with the task, the difficult task here of trying to conduct this conversation in a way that doesn't resort to the sort of fisticuffs that go viral on the internet and get me jobs on the telly. I will never, ever, ever be able to repay my debt to UKIP supporters and the amazing boost they've given to me over the last 2 years. But today I'd like to avoid that kind of name calling and point scoring. We can agree on one thing, can't we? Carswell versus Farage is like Tyson versus Jimmy Krankie, just in terms of the UKIP core support, not in terms of everybody else, but in terms of the Barmy Army, the Faragistas. There is absolutely no way that Douglas Carswell's call for a change at the top of the party is going to be heeded by anybody. And when he calls for a change at the top of the party, just for the avoidance of doubt, I have absolutely no reason to believe that he means simply for another long weekend. He wants Nigel to step down just for another 3 days and then take the job. I think this time he's calling... I know resignation is a slightly odd word in the context of recent UKIP history. As someone promises to resign if X happens and then X happens and they're still in the job a month later, it doesn't make sense outside of the personality cult, but inside the personality cult it's absolutely normal. Carswell doesn't quite get this. He doesn't quite realise that the loyalty is as much to the man as it is to anything that could be loosely described as a mission. He appeared twice on the breakfast show this morning, Nigel Farage, which frankly I don't think he's on enough. He appeared twice on the breakfast show this morning and said, as you'd expect, that the real reason why they lost in Oldham was because too many brown people were allowed to vote. It's an astonishing intervention on an electoral level, but one which his supporters will be cheering to the right. Yeah, what went wrong? Too many brown people were allowed to vote. Postal votes. Oh, we was robbed. Great. Here's the problem, though. It's a little bit like trying to convince somebody that the moon is not made of cheese when they've got a big lump of cheese in their hand that they've been successfully persuaded came from the moon. Do you think there can be a UKIP without Nigel Farage at the front? Okay? And let's try and keep it friendly. 0345 6060 973. Hit the numbers now. You will get through. Absolutely open house on this one, because it is one of those situations where people who routinely ring in with the same refrain day after day after day. Actually, today I do want to hear from you. I do want to know whether you honestly think there can be a party without Farage. I don't. And in a way, I will offer that up to you as a compliment to the man. It is an astonishing achievement to have marshalled just about every person in the country who harbours nasty thoughts about foreigners or homosexuals or other minorities, whatever it may be. Everybody who used to be spread out among a whole array of weird, disparate, far-right organisations, every single one of them now has come under the UKIP umbrella. And that is because of one man. And I don't care how many other characters they put up on Question Time, or to do the paper review on the radio, or to sort of pretend that they've actually got a position of power for a couple of weeks. There is only one man. He's in the driving seat, he's in the passenger seat, he's in both back seats, and he's mostly in the ashtray as well. So I obviously find the entire project abhorrent, repellent, deeply, deeply dangerous and wrong. Fascism to me comes in many, many guises. It can even come in a tweed coat and grey skin. But we can today agree, can't we, that without him, there's no party. Hit the numbers now, you will get through. 0345 6060 973. Because there is a slight danger, and I offer this to you in absolute honesty. There is a slight danger that my own opinion of the Barmy Army has been coloured by social media. I have been lucky enough over the last 12 months or so, to 18 months or thereabouts, I've been lucky enough to be bombarded on a daily basis by wonderful human beings who call themselves things like Crusader 27, or This is England, or England my England, or St. George the Dragon, and they keep me warm at night, these people. And I wonder whether actually I've allowed them and their hilarious... One of them spends his weekends writing rude words on my forehead on photographs and then posting them to all his other little friends on Twitter. They are wonderful, wonderful people who have given me and my friends immense amounts of amusement and enjoyment. But they're also pretty close to stone-cold textbook fascists. That's why they don't use their real names usually on Twitter. And I just wonder whether I've allowed myself over the last year or so to be a little bit persuaded by them that that's what all Faragistas are like. Persuaded by them that a man who makes people feel better about the ugliest parts of themselves must by definition have more ugly parts than anybody else. That is what he does. I mean, that, I'm afraid, isn't even a matter of opinion. That's a matter of fact. He takes those things that people spent 20 years being told were wrong. No, you're not allowed to say that about black people. You're not allowed to say that about gays. You're not allowed to say that about Pakistanis. And suddenly, single-handedly, he's made it acceptable to say all those things again. And that must be very, very liberating for people confused by what was called political correctness, but what was really just good manners and tolerance. Sitting alongside each other, trying to see what we have in common, trying to see the best in each other, trying to be excellent to each other. And political correctness, I never understood what it was until the rise of UKIP. I didn't actually know what people were complaining about, because I do this job and people would ring me and say, you can't say what you want in this country anymore, you're not allowed to say what you want about immigration. And I'd say, what do you mean you're not allowed to say what you want? This is a phony show, you can say whatever the hell you want. Go on, say it now. And I always remember the caller who said, all right, well, I used to live in Hounslow and it really smells now. And I thought, oh, wow. So I see your point, actually. You probably shouldn't be allowed, or at least encouraged, or possibly even permitted to say things like that. I never silence you, but if you want to say things like that, then my freedom of speech allows me to say that you're a chuntering racist. That seems to be the problem at the heart of the party. Their idea of freedom of speech means they can stand up and say whatever they want without being called out for what they actually are. Without him, what's left? 0345 6060 973. It's coming up to 10:15, okay? And the question couldn't really be simpler. UKIP's a party with one MP, but somehow they've managed to have a split. Quite how you achieve that, I guess only UKIP could. We've got one MP and we've got a leadership crisis. The only MP, the only man ever to be elected in a general election as a member of parliament for this party, has called for the leader to leave. The leader, however, retains a level of popularity within the rank and file that people like David Cameron and Jeremy Corbyn can only dream of. He's almost sort of like a sort of messianic status among some of his more deluded followers. And I just don't think Carswell knows what day it is if he thinks he can pick a fight with Farage and win. Of course, I don't know what goes on in the party machine of UKIP. I've got absolutely no idea. But I very much doubt he's been given enough support by some of the other names. It's a bloke who looks like Adrian Edmondson with the glasses, you know, the one who looks like Paul Nuttall. And then there's the other fella, the one, Reckless, yeah, and the nice lady. The nice posh-sounding lady who used to be a Tory, used to tweet me about how awful Romanians are. What's her name? Suzanne Evans. Yes, had to mute her as well, actually. But all of these people presumably have got a say in what happens next. But even if they were to all join forces and shout at the top of their reedy little voices, the notion that they'd be able to drown out the drone of Farage is palpably absurd. I'm not sure how successful I've been in promising to keep things friendly. So I'll try again after the travel news. When you tell me whether or not you think there can be a party on anything like the scale that it's currently achieving without the Farage. Douglas Carswell has taken aim at the UKIP leader Nigel Farage. It's funny, my inbox divides equally among people saying, why do you give this party so much airtime? Why do you talk about them so much? Not so much me anymore, but the station in general. And equally, people saying, they got 4 million votes, how can you speak about them in such a negative way? And I think the truth lies somewhere between the two. From a journalistic point of view, they've been absolutely flipping fascinating, truly fascinating. It's been astonishing. Someone of my age, naively believing that the dark days of the 1940s were behind us and that the evil face of fascism could never rise again in a civilized country like France or Britain. The last few years have been chilling to the core. America are getting it now, with Donald Trump, of course. But not to talk about it would be ridiculous. However, maybe I'm just trying to comfort myself when I say that without the leader, there will be no party. What do you think? Carswell says it's time for a change. I say Farage makes people feel good about the ugliest parts of themselves, and very, very few people have that diabolical gift. Eddie's in Finchley. Eddie, can there be a party without the man?
Hello?
Eddie, can there be a party without the man?
No, I like the man. He's very charismatic. He's brought the party to life. I like a lot of what he stands for.
What's your favourite?
Not everything, but...
What's your favourite?
What's my favourite? The fact that he wants to come out of Europe. I'm fed up of being ruled by...
He doesn't want to come out of Europe. He wants to come out of the EU. It's an important distinction to make. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, okay. Yeah.
I don't think we can come out of Europe.
I mean, personally, we always, household, we vote Conservatives. But if Conservatives took some of his policies on board, we'd be happy as Larry.
Can there be a party without the man?
No.
Why not? Well, I mean, lots of people can be Eurosceptic. I just asked you to pick your favourite so that I could work out whether someone else could. They're all Eurosceptic. Everyone in the party's Eurosceptic. Do you know what he's just said on BBC Essex? We cannot allow someone to sow the seeds of division.
Well, he's quite funny.
That's hilarious. Seriously, I should give him a Christmas special. Yeah. Oh, hang on, we probably have. Just tell me why there can't be a party without him.
Right now, the party's being built. So if you start chopping and changing, people will lose interest. He's interesting to listen to. That's it.
Well,
that's all I can say.
No, fair enough. And someone who's sort of drawn to him, not enough to vote for him. I think you said you're a Tory voter, but still, you're right. He does push buttons that other politicians can't seem to reach. He refreshes parts that other politicians can't seem to reach. 0345 6060 973. Can there be a number? Can there be a party without this leader? Douglas Carswell thinks there can. Douglas Carswell cuts an increasingly tragic figure, a man for whom UKIP turned out to be the only place on the planet where he could feel like an intellectual. And this is the sort of, if you like, the writhings of the realisation of what he's done. He's sort of said, oh my lordy, look who I've got into bed with. I can't get out now. There's nowhere else I can go. Maybe I can change the bedding. But what he doesn't realise is that UKIP, or Nigel Farage, is not the duvet of UKIP. He's the bedstead, the mattress, the divan, and the dog blanket. Jonathan's in Bishop Stortford. Jonathan, what would you like to say?
What I'd like to say, James, is the fact that you just seem to have this vendetta against that certain man. And
No. That's an awful thing to say. I have a vendetta against all forms of fascism.
Maybe you really think he's right, because you seem to spend a lot of time thinking about it and talking about it.
Not as much as you do about me.
Hold on, I'll just answer your question. There's always going to be somebody that's like-minded like him, because when you can't...
Of course there is. It was Nick Griffin before, wasn't it?
Just a minute, James, just a minute. It's meant to be a two-way conversation. Well, you can't get a doctor's appointment for your daughter because there's so many people in this country that you so love, and your daughter's now desperately ill.
So we're talking about Nigel, not me.
Or you can't go to the shops because the queues are so dreadful.
Jonathan, right, stay on the line. Give the address to the producer. I want to know the shop where you can't get to the till because the queues are so long. Can you tell me now, or do you need a bit of time to dream something up?
No, we haven't quite got there, James. But what Farage is trying to do is understand that you will get.
So he's painting a picture of something that hasn't happened and using it to frighten you.
Sorry?
He's using a picture of something that hasn't happened to frighten you. Do you know what I'm here to do? I'm here to put an arm around your shoulder and tell you not to be so frighted.
No, it's a reality, James. This is where you twist.
But that's why I asked. Where's the shop if it's a reality?
This is coming from someone that spent an hour on their show last week.
Where's the shop, Jonathan? Where's the shop where the queue's too long for you to get served? You just said it was reality.
But it will happen. It will happen.
No, that's not reality, though, is it?
Wake you up and realise
that's not reality.
It's going to happen in the future.
You can't say it's reality and then say it's never happened.
What? But it will happen.
But it's not reality until it does.
It's not reality.
It's not reality
because you want to fill the country up till it's bursting, don't you?
No, absolutely not, Jonathan. There's plenty of people I'd rather not share a country with. But I don't have any choice.
Built on and every house.
I don't have any choice.
Next to somebody else's house.
Let's try again. Can there be a party without the leader?
Well, look at the present leader. Look what an idiot he is. Completely, Cameron will go down as the worst prime minister.
Oh, bless you. No, we're talking about can there be a UKIP without Nigel Farage?
Yes, absolutely.
Who will be in charge?
Somebody trying to teach people like yourself, James.
Who will be in charge, Jonathan? Mate, to be honest, I'm not going to detain you any longer because you need to get down that shop and book your place in that queue that doesn't exist but is a brilliant reflection of reality. You wonder why I enjoy this so much. Jonathan, mate, have a fantastic Christmas. Seriously. Alison's in Crawley. Alison, can there be a party without the person?
Without Farage? No, I don't think they can. But actually, I don't think Douglas Carswell thinks they can either.
What's he up to then?
I think what he's doing is separating himself from UKIP. He's probably talking to the Tories already. I mean, what a great...
You're joking, aren't you? They wouldn't touch him with a barge pole, Alison.
I think they would, especially say if David Cameron could come back with what will be his ridiculous flimsy deal in Europe and say, there we are, we've even persuaded the only UKIP MP that we've done enough.
Carswell would never do that. To be fair to both of them, they'd be equally repelled by that notion. So why can't the party survive without the person?
Carswell's done it once. He's crossed the House once. I think he's like the sort of, he's a slightly sort of ghastly, preppy schoolboy.
He's a Gladstonian liberal, Alison.
I think he will go back across. He's backed the wrong horse. He thought they'd do well in the general election, then he thought they'd do well in the by-election, and now he's thinking, Blumeneck, I've got till 2020 max, and he'll cross the floor of the House.
Okay, I think you're completely wrong, but I will defend to the death your right to be so wrong. If I could just insist that you answer the question that I'm asking, can there be a party without the person?
No.
Why not?
Because there isn't. Because there is no substance to it. They're people with a few ideas.
Hang on a minute. You heard Jonathan. There might be shops one day where you can't get served because the queues are so long. That's substance.
Yeah. Not massively, though, is it, really?
Laugh at my callers, Alison. How rude of you.
I'm sorry.
That's all right.
I'm so sorry.
It's Christmas as well. We should put a Christian arm around Jonathan and find him a shop where the queues aren't so long that the poor fella can't get served till Boxing Day.
Well, if poor Jonathan thinks that's substance, I really despair, because there is no substance to UKIP.
But that's the point.
You're right. It's Farage.
That's the point. There's no substance to it. It's as flimsy as a cheap suit. But to be able to make it plausible is a fantastic gift. I mean that. It's a diabolical gift, but it is a fantastic gift. It's like the people who could sell you a Ponzi scheme, for example. Just like that. The idea that someone has the ability to sell you something worthless is how many fortunes have been made, both politically, of course, and financially. Snake oil salesmen, people who would persuade you to buy a little bit of wood in the 16th century because they told you it was part of Jesus's cross. Now, I couldn't pull that off, but some people could. Point is, of course, if you're peddling what is effectively race hate, you've got to be really remarkable to make it look like anything other than race hate. It's 29 minutes after 10. You're listening to James O'Brien on LBC, where I think we're in broad agreement, aren't we? All of us. Without Nigel Farage, there can be no UKIP. And as ever, the phone, even though he's already been on twice today, as ever, the phone lines to this programme are wide open for the man himself. I think for a minute why he's so reluctant to talk to me. He seems to be biting off the hands of journalists on an almost daily basis. I tell you what I'd really like to talk to him about, that Guardian article about the street in Oldham where no one could speak English. Because I've spoken to the Guardian about that. They adamant they never published it. I can't wait to find out where he read that.
James O'Brien on LBC.
25 minutes to 11. Douglas Carswell says the UK Independence Party needs a fresh face as leader. Oddly, Douglas Carswell is the most electorally successful member of the party, but of course he's not the leader. He says he doesn't want to be. He wants a fresh face as leader, as opposed, presumably, to a fish face. But without the fish face, can there be a party? 0345 6060 973. 10:35 is the time. Also, much more seriously, you remember that Conservative MP we were talking about earlier in the week and last week, and in fact I suggested to you that there was something about the story that kept drawing us back in again. It just didn't feel right. The recently elected MP for Telford, Lucy Allen, of course, was accused of doctoring a Facebook posting by a constituent to make it look like a death threat. She still hasn't produced evidence backing up her claim that she hadn't done that. She still hasn't produced the so-called second email, which contained the words "unless you die," words that she stuck on the end of another message that should have ended with the words "then there is no hope." Complete coincidence, according to her, that ended up reading "then there is no hope unless you die." Random jottings pasted together by her, but she hasn't, of course, produced evidence of the second pasting. She did produce evidence of a voicemail message left on her constituency answer phone that did contain a toxic death threat, so to speak, which means, presumably, that she will approve of the behaviour of her former employee, who's also released to the media recordings of telephone messages in which she appears to be bullying fairly egregiously a young woman who worked on her campaign. I think Miss Allen is still denying all of these allegations and accusations, but the fray is joined today by a woman who called Katie Woodland, who was the actual campaign manager until just before the general election. I've already spoken to Katie Woodland, and I will play you that interview after 11 o'clock. Here is just a little indication of what you can expect.
I am a Conservative. I believe in the values of the party. I think it's very unfortunate that the campaign was so successful. And I just feel really sorry for the people of Telford, for all of the volunteers and everybody that worked so hard. But it's hard because I'm glad that Telford, was given the opportunity to have a Conservative MP. I think it's just very unfortunate that the person who has then been elected doesn't seem to be a suitable person.
Distinction there between the party and the person, the team, if you like, and the leader, which is relevant to the conversation that we're having this hour about UKIP and that we'll be having after 12 o'clock about Jose Mourinho as well. It's one of those mornings, those rare mornings, where a story from the back page has arrived on the front page. And that's why we'll be talking about it, but not from a footballing point of view, from a sort of leadership point of view, from a fall from grace, hubris. It's a Greek tragedy, the tale of Mourinho. To go from hero to zero in 10 seconds flat when you truly did appear to be the special one. I can't wait to hear what you think about that. It's 10:38. Can there be a UKIP without a Nigel Farage? Paul's in Woodford. Paul, what do you reckon?
Yeah, I reckon so. I mean, I think Nigel Farage is really good, but I would still vote for UKIP, even if Farage wasn't in charge.
What name would you like to see on the, or are you just saying even if they put the rosette on a baboon, you'd vote for them?
Well, I just like their policies. Their policies, I think, will help me, so that's why I'd vote for them.
Well, that's the only reason any of us vote, I suppose, unless, of course, you're voting against your own self-interest in order to make society better, but very few people are I suppose, holier than thou enough to claim that they do that. What are the policies that tickle you then most, that you think would improve your life most?
Well, I'm in the building trade, so I want to get out of the EU so we control immigration. My wages are lower than 12 years ago, so I think that would help me. That's why I would vote for UKIP.
Everybody's wages are lower than 12 years ago.
They're not lower, Jones. I mean, people might not have had raises, but the building trade, our wages are lower. They've actually gone down. And
this is because there are too many Poles here?
Yeah, obviously. I mean, if you flood the workforce, you can... The company bosses can pay lower wages.
And when the construction industry says that they're crying out for skilled tradesmen, that they're, I mean, is it unskilled trade that you're talking about?
I think that's a load of rubbish, because I know lots of people, what I do, they've got out of the trade because the wages got so low.
And therefore anyone who stands up and says fewer foreigners is going to get your vote?
Well, it's not just fewer foreigners, James. I think
what else?
Control immigration.
Yeah, that's what fewer foreigners means, mate. Well, what else have we got?
I want to get out of the EU.
Why?
Because I think we owe billions, so why should we subsidise other people in the EU when we owe billions anyway? I think it's a big waste of money.
So fewer foreigners in the country, less money going to foreigners outside the country. It doesn't matter whether Nigel's there or not. Anyone who stands up and says down with foreigners has got your vote. No,
it's not that, James. If your wages was lower and you were struggling, obviously I've got to think of my family.
Well, yeah, but I don't think I'd turn around and blame the foreign fella over there.
Listen, I'm not...
I blame my employer.
Yeah, but listen, I don't blame...
I blame my employer, and I'd make myself even better at my job, so they had to pay me more. Is that naive? It probably is, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. But that's what I did last time I got a pay rise. I put a shed load of listeners on the show. Got me a pay rise. Worked harder, did better. But that's naive.
Yeah, if you got company...
So if I lose a load of listeners, all I got to do to protect myself, to make myself feel better, keep Mrs. O'Brien happy, blame it on immigration.
If you want to say it's just that, but it's not just that, Jones, is it?
Well, that's why I keep asking you what else you've got, Paul.
Can I say one thing? You said Nigel Farage had a go at blacks and Pakistanis. I heard him in the debates.
No, I never said that. I said he lost in Oldham because too many brown people voted.
No, and you also said he had a go at black people.
No, I didn't.
One thing.
No, I didn't.
He said...
Very... Anyway, we're talking about you, not me, now.
I knew you wouldn't let me say it, but he...
I'll go and say it then, Paul, because I hate to be accused of censoring you. What is it you want to say about things I never said?
Well, he said he would control immigration so the young black kids could get jobs easier. Because lots of the
hang on, what if they want jobs in the building trade?
Sorry?
What if these young black kids want jobs in the building trade?
Well, it's good. You need apprentices.
Hang on a minute. I thought we didn't want people coming here and taking your jobs.
No, it's a bit of a difference if people in this country are coming into the building trade. That's how it's always worked. But if you get in hundreds of thousands of people coming over every year, it's a bit different.
OK, mate. And the party will survive without him because there will always be a very, very pronounced appetite for the kind of policies that allow you to blame your whole life on somebody else.
If that's how you want to put it, James, but if your wages was lower than 15...
You keep saying that, Paul. I mean, you're supposed to be a right-winger, mate. If your wages are low, you're supposed to go out and get another job on. You will work harder. I'm not a right-winger. I would say you need a strong union. We need stronger legislation to raise your wages. You shouldn't actually be deprived of the right to tell your employer to stick it when he tries to cut the wages and bring in a cheap... This is the point, Paul. Come here. I've been a bit rude to you, and I apologise. All right?
Yeah. I work 6 days every week.
I know you do, and I'm apologising to you for being a bit rude, because you're the kind of person I should be sort of putting an arm around and telling you not to be frightened and angry. Here's the thing, yeah? If your wages have been undercut, it doesn't matter what nationality the person who's undercut you is. What matters is the system that allows you to be so easily undercut. So you could turn off the tap, get rid of the people, stop them coming in, stop them being born, stop them being trained. You could do that, or you could look back to the period when you were on decent whack, or you could go back even further when people in your profession were on a much higher relative income and ask yourself what was different. And what was different then was that you had collective bargaining powers, you had strong trade unions, and you had political leaders who would agitate for things like living wages, increases right across the board. And just because you were born into the working class doesn't mean you should be denied the right to earn a proper income. Look at how they talk about tube drivers, Paul. Someone born into a working class family shouldn't be earning 50 grand a year. It's absolutely disgusting. But when you get squeezed and there's someone whispering in your ear, blame the Poles, blame the Romanians. Do you know what they're really doing to you?
Drivers, Jones.
No, I know you do, but don't blame the wrong people for you getting screwed from above, mate.
Oh, listen, I'm not blaming the migrants coming in.
Yeah, you are. You totally are.
No, I'm blaming the politicians for letting them all in.
Oh, all right then.
Making it so
Oh, so it's a useful distinction. Tom's in Windsor. Tom, the party without the leader, what would it look like?
Yeah, I mean, I think in the short term it might take a little bit of a dip, but I think in the longer term, you know, at the moment, I think Nigel is a very polarising character, and obviously that caps off support for the party, and obviously ideologically as well. Over the last 5 or 6 years, it's kind of shifted around a little bit. I think it needs to find its station, and then
found its station. It's us. The question I have for you is twofold. Number one, you sound as if you're a bit close to the action on this. I could be wrong.
Well, I used to be on the national executive, so the governing board, up until 5 months ago, and I used to be a councillor as well.
Why did you leave?
For that reason, actually, for the reason that Kars was talking about, I think after May we needed a proper post-mortem analysis as to why we didn't win more seats and why we didn't broaden our appeal, and the narrative, I think, was, as Kars was saying, was kind of too focused on this kind of, you know, anti-immigration piece, which, you know, was not...
Yeah, but you just heard the last caller, Paul, who I apologise to. I think I was a bit too robust with him. It's important to say that about yourself if you're so keen to say it about other people. You just heard the last caller there, and that, to me, and I could be wrong, but I'm a student of UKIP, that to me is the core vote. The people who are absolutely persuaded that immigration is the root of all evil, the cause of all their ills, and anybody who stands up and shouts the loudest about how awful it is will always have their vote. And that's what you and Carswell find a little bit toxic. And yet, to me, as an outsider looking in to your organisation, that is it's got to be, I don't want to put a percentage on it, but it's got to be a fat slice of the core support, hasn't it?
It has, but I think you can get those people on board without kind of changing what you believe in. When I joined the party in 2012, it was a party that wanted a flat rate tax of 18% plus national insurance. It wanted to abolish inheritance tax. It was unashamedly pro free market, low tax.
Do you know, when I first encountered UKIP in the Union Bar at the London School of Economics shortly after Alan Sked set it up, they were going to turn down their salaries if they got elected to the European Parliament. That would have created a different picture for British politics. Imagine acting with that sort of integrity and principle, instead of trousering every groton euro you can get your grubby little fingers on.
But I think Nigel's done a great job. He's taken the party from circa 4% in the polls up into 12%. I think it's a little bit like a business. Sometimes the person that has a start-up in the back of their garage, they take it so far. Sometimes you need a different individual to get that company listed onto the FTSE, and I think that's where UKIP is at the moment. It now needs someone else to take it to the next level, and I think someone like Stephen Wolf or someone like that has the ability to do that.
I don't want to put words into your mouth, but are you telling me that you think you could... should we call them the immigration obsessives? Can we agree on that phrase?
No, we can't.
All right, what phrase can we agree on for people like my callers who when asked what it is they like about UKIP, can't say anything except immigration policy? What can we call them?
Well, look, we can just say that immigration is high up on their agenda, but
no, I'm talking about the people who actually can't name another policy. I've got hours of it on YouTube. So that you think you can hang on to them while also detoxifying the party for people who are put off by that position?
Absolutely, that's just one tenet. Unfortunately,
I think you might be right.
What Nigel did right was a couple of years ago, he was banging on about the EU, and no one really cared. It was kind of 8th or 7th in a kind of a hierarchy of what's important to British public on opinion polls. Then he saw that immigration was first or second, depending on the month, and then it would flip with the NHS. Yeah. And kind of what he carefully and craftily did was say, well, actually, immigration is a core...
Let's whip up lots of anti-immigration feeling and hopefully turn it into a reason to leave the EU. You said craftily. I'm not going to dispute that. It's 10:48. Carswell has taken aim at Farage. It is a circular firing squad, potentially, except I personally don't believe Douglas Carswell has a chance of dethroning the leader, the mighty leader Nigel. Do you? And I guess, in a way, it's a question that UKIP supporters' answers are more interesting than mine, more important than mine. Could you imagine yourself still voting for them if they didn't have such a charismatic figurehead? Fred's in Retford in Nottinghamshire. What do you reckon, Fred?
Hi, James. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Yeah, just before I sort of give my humble opinion on Farage, I don't know if you recall, I called in a couple of weeks ago about the Lucy Allen story, and you've been such tease, James.
What do you mean?
Just posting little bits of that audio from that interview with her person. I want to find out what.
I don't know what you're talking about. I would never be so cynical and ridiculous. Oh, just hang on the line for 1 second, will you?
I am a Conservative. I believe in the values of the party. I think it's very unfortunate that the campaign was so successful. And I just feel really sorry for the people of Telford, for all of the volunteers and everybody that worked so hard. But it's hard because I'm glad that Telford, was given the opportunity to have a Conservative MP. And I think it's just very unfortunate that the person who has then been elected doesn't seem to be a suitable person.
That was, of course, Lucy Allen's former campaign manager. Sorry, Fred, I lost my thread. Sorry. Fred, what were we talking about?
Sorry, Nigel Farage, everybody's favourite cartoon character.
I've got to tell you, my friend, I owe Nigel Farage big time. I really do.
I know you do, James.
No one will ever persuade me otherwise. But would there be UKIP without him?
No, I think it's the Nigel Farage party. But then, I'll be honest, I must say, I'm not a UKIP supporter, but from the outside looking in, it seems to me like it's the party of Nigel Farage. I don't agree with any of his policies, but he's a funny, weird, interesting bloke. I mean, I do find a lot of what he says quite abhorrent, but, obviously it's appealing to some people. I think he's a big draw.
But would it still be appealing if somebody else was making the same noises? And this is actually more like alchemy, isn't it, than academic pursuit, because it's not somehow the message, it's the messenger has somehow rendered the message less toxic. He's made people feel better about the ugliest parts of themselves, and that's a personality achievement, not a political one.
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, that is, I suppose, I don't want to bandy about the phrase personality cult, but that is kind of the way it is. It's making it palatable. But I mean, like that previous caller he was a very angry man, the gentleman in the building trade, very angry man whose anger has attached itself to that kind of argument being put forward by Farage.
Yes. And
whether that's a valid way of dealing with that man's problems, I personally don't think it is. I think what you were saying about trade unions and
but this is, again, not to be too self-referential, and I'll play you that full interview after the 11 o'clock news, Fred, I promise. I don't know, you might have to, you'll be able to feed the kids, you'll be able to do the wash, you've got to go to work and pour yourself a coffee, and I think this, you forget sometimes the humanity of some of these situations that you discuss, and I'm going to try moving forward to be someone, when people come onto the programme who are frightened and angry, at least try to make them less frightened and angry. That's where all of my opinions about immigration come from. You come to me, you say, I'm really frightened and I'm really angry, and I try and show you why you should be less frightened and less angry. Life would be better for everybody if you were less frightened and less angry. And then, of course, as you've learned this hour, not from Paul, but from the chap in Bishop Stortford, some people are so determined to be angry, so determined to stay furious and fearful, that I can't. And I guess that we should reserve for those people the full weight of the scalpel, perhaps. The people who, if you took away the fury and the fear, would have nothing left. But then you put it like that, you should feel even sorrier for them. People who exist on an undiluted diet of bile, served up in exceptional fashion by Mr. Farage. So if the bile server disappears, what happens to the party? David's in Clacton, which is, of course, Douglas Carswell's constituency. I can't wait to hear what you think. Who do they love more down there, Carswell or Farage?
The latter, because Douglas is very popular around here, but he saw the rise of UKIP a few years ago and thought, my position here might be under threat. So he took the decision to go to UKIP. He may be seduced by Nigel. It might be for his own interests.
And it was a place where he could feel like an intellectual as well. Yeah.
Yes, of course. But Mr. Farage has got the opportunity now, because Mr. Cameron won't have Mr. Carswell back.
No
and if Farage says, Douglas, go your own way, he's got a perfect opportunity, because this area is the UKIP area. He will get voted in with a landslide.
So Farage for UKIP versus Carswell as an independent?
No doubt, because there'll still be people like Carswell to vote Tory, as did last time, but the draw of UKIP and Nigel is far more than Carswell. They love the UKIP around here.
And that's why. So you keep saying they love UKIP, but it's Farage they love, because...
Oh, they love, of course, Farage, yeah. No, Farage.
And it's Farage. Anyone else on a UKIP ticket would not have that cachet. No one at all.
No.
And I think that's true of the leadership as well, don't you? I mean, not just in Clacton, but across the country. I mean, some of the thoughtful UKIPers all sound a little bit like Douglas Carswell. We spoke to the gentleman earlier who'd been a councillor, and they sort of see the future of the party somehow as being detoxified, and that would demand the removal of Farage. You can't detoxify the party without getting rid of him. But when you get rid of him, what's left?
If you ask the people who voted UKIP, name another UKIP apart from Nigel Farage, most people won't know anybody else apart from Farage.
You ask most people who voted UKIP to name another UKIP policy apart from being down on immigration, and they look at you, well, they do an amazing impression of a goldfish.
But being here in Clacton,
or Nigel.
Even though I'm a Corbynista, it's quite hilarious watching it all in Pode, and I'm quite excited. I wish it will happen, because there's no chance anybody I want to vote for getting in.
Look, if UKIP are tearing themselves to shreds, you describe yourself as a Corbynista. Your party's tearing itself to shreds as well, whether you're pleased about that or not.
My party.
Pardon?
It's not. Yeah, but technically,
the only people rubbing their hands with glee today shouldn't be you, David. It should be the Conservatives. Oh, until they hear the interview I've got coming up after the 11 o'clock news.
Yeah, we're losing, of course. And also Cameron's making a big mess of what he's doing in Europe at the moment. So everyone's got not happy at the moment. And Mr. Osborne also was found out by Angela Eagle last week. So
it was good to see. It was good to see. And hey, everyone, a supporter of any party, will hope that things are going to get better in the new year rather than worse. But I would imagine that for Labour and for UKIP, that's going to take an effort of will that the Conservatives would not have to employ to believe that things for them will still only get better.